Good evening, everybody. Today we got some very exciting news with the proposed opening dates of both SeaWorld and Walt Disney World. So this took place at a task force for the reopening of Orange County. And what they did is both SeaWorld and Disney gave presentations on when they would like to reopen.
And the procedures that they would implement in order to reopen.
Yeah, so we will start with SeaWorld. SeaWorld's planned reopening is June 11th. So it's very soon.
So SeaWorld will be requiring all team members and guests to wear a face mask, a facial covering. They will also be requiring all guests and team members to have their temperature taken. Did they mention what the temperature needed to be under?
No, but the majority of what I've heard so far as all of the other attractions that are opening and their plan is 100.4.
Okay. They will also be implementing physical distancing around the park, and they even showed some examples of what the signage would look like for the physical distancing. I did like that their signage was themed to the park. So you'll have to be the length of a black tip reef shark apart, which is 6 feet.
Fun fact, we swam with those at Discovery Cove.
Oh yeah, we did. So there you go. Got to be a shark's length apart.
They also said that they're going to have physical barriers where physical distancing is not possible. Take, for instance, at the turnstiles. So the way that the tickets work for SeaWorld is you have a barcode on the back of your ticket, and they scan it with a barcode reader, like one of those red lasers that you would see at the grocery store or something like that. And what they've done is they put up plexiglass around where the team member would stand to scan the ticket, and they can scan the ticket through the plexiglass.
Yeah.
So, smart. They will also have specifically marked entrances and exits to the stores. And another thing that they said is that they're going to reduce capacity to the park and on rides. One of the downsides of this is that they're going to be getting rid of single rider lines.
Okay.
So based on the signage that they've released, it kind of looks like their physical distancing on the ride is just going to be seating every other row. So if you imagine Mako, somebody would be sitting in the front row, then they'd skip a row to the third row, and then they would seat the third row.
And that's just us kind of guessing based on the picture of the signage that they released. We're not 100% sure on that yet.
And I can tell you that we have seen reports that SeaWorld started testing their roller coasters recently with people wearing masks and different kinds of masks to see if the mask would stay on, I'm assuming. And so that says to me that you will more than likely have to wear your mask on the roller coaster as well. So also, when you're getting onto the ride or getting off the ride, they're going to have hand sanitizer available, and they're going to be doing increased cleanings of the rides and of all of the high-touch, high-traffic areas of the park.
Which would definitely be on these like high thrill roller coasters. I know when I ride a roller coaster, I'm like gripped to the, to the handrail thing, to the little, like the handle.
Yeah.
So I imagine those things are going to be cleaned like nonstop.
Another thing that was really interesting about SeaWorld's presentation is that they said that they're not getting rid of character meet and greets. They are adjusting them for physical distancing. So I think that in my mind, in the Sesame Street area, you can meet Elmo and Cookie Monster. And the way that they have it set up, it almost seems like Cookie Monster could be standing way behind you, and you could be maybe like 6 feet in front of him. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
But I think that it is a positive because they're not taking away the meet and greet altogether.
Right.
So it is kind of like a silver lining. Maybe it's not going to be like it used to be. You're not going to be right up next to Cookie Monster. You can't give him a hug. But still being able to take that photo, I think, is definitely a silver lining.
Yeah.
Another procedure that was proposed had to do with food and buffet-style food. So they did say that they would either be discontinuing buffet-style restaurants or they would be adjusting the way that they serve the food at the buffet-style restaurants. And the way that they explained it is that they would be doing pre-packaged food. So it would almost be like a grab-and-go at that point.
Right. So when we got the announcement that Universal was opening, they also said that they were going to be opening up Volcano Bay, and I thought that this was very strange. And then SeaWorld did the same thing. SeaWorld said they quoted the CDC, whereas the CDC said that the virus does not easily transmit through water. And so they're going to be opening up their water park. They're going to be opening up Aquatica the same day that they open up SeaWorld.
Did they mention anything about Discovery Cove?
They didn't mention Discovery Cove specifically, but they said something along the lines of, we'll set up the chairs at Aquatica so that they are physically distant. And also, if you've been to our Discovery Cove park, you know that the park lends itself to that very well. So that to me says that they're going to be opening up Discovery Cove too, although this was not announced. But it feels like that's what they're saying.
But we know for sure that they were proposing to open up Aquatica.
Right. SeaWorld and Aquatica for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. which I'm interested to know as far as Discovery Cove goes, because we just talked about how they're discontinuing or changing buffets. Discovery Cove was just basically one huge buffet.
Yeah, how would that work?
I don't know.
That would be interesting. I wonder if that's something they're still trying to figure out, and maybe that's why they didn't talk about Discovery Cove yet.
Maybe.
Because the main draw for Discovery Cove is the all-you-can-eat food and drink all day long.
Yeah.
So,
And I would also be interested to know a little bit more about the water transmission, because to me it makes sense if you have chlorine in the water. Chlorine is like a cleaner.
Yeah.
And it should help out with the virus, but then they have the area where you can swim with the rays, which is just salt water. There's no chlorine in that water.
Right.
But it is filtered a lot because of the rays, and I know that salt water is a little bit more harsh.
I don't know. Those are all really good questions. Hopefully they will maybe talk a little bit more about it, or...
Yeah, I have a feeling once... Because what we're waiting on right now is we're waiting for the governor to approve these plans. And I'm sure once the governor approves it, then SeaWorld will probably come out with some sort of press release and stuff saying like what everything is, what the overall exact plan is,
right.
What to expect when you go to SeaWorld.
So we'll definitely be getting more information, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Did they mention... Because they mentioned that you would be required to wear masks at the theme park, team members and guests, but did they mention anything about wearing a mask at the water park?
They did not. Because this is just the proposed plan for reopening, they didn't get into too much detail, but we do know based off of Universal, because Universal is opening all three parks, Universal, Islands of Adventure, and Volcano Bay. So the rules at Volcano Bay are that you don't wear a mask on the slides or in the pools. And then they also said that some of the team members, like the lifeguards, are going to be wearing masks that can go in the water, kind of like a neck gaiter style mask. So I don't know about Aquatica.
I guess we'll see again when they release more information.
And then after SeaWorld wrapped up, then Disney gave their presentation. And now Disney's plan is a little bit different in the fact that they are opening in July. So the proposed dates for Disney's opening, it's going to be a phased opening. Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom is July 11th. And then Epcot and Hollywood Studios is July 15th. So an entire month later.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if they're just waiting to kind of see how everything sort of pans out for everybody else.
There was a quote from Bob Chapek today where he said, our parks are bigger. Like, there's a lot more that has to go into it than goes into Universal, SeaWorld, those places. So
that makes sense.
That's what he said. So now, the biggest thing that you need to know about the proposed reopening of Walt Disney World is that they are requiring a reservation system. So you can't just show up at Walt Disney World on July 11th and be like, I'm going to Magic Kingdom.
Right.
You have to reserve your place in the park, which sounds like it's going to be difficult.
Well, they did say that it was for people that already had tickets.
Right. They're not selling any new tickets, and they're not accepting any new hotel reservations.
So, okay, so that means that annual pass holders
Mm-hmm.
and anybody that already had purchased a ticket for a date past July 11th.
Right.
Or July 11th.
Or anybody that had purchased a ticket for the time that the parks were shut down, or anybody that had booked a vacation for the time that the parks were shut down.
Okay.
Those people are the ones that are going to be able to get into the parks when they reopen.
Well, those are the people that will be able to get a reservation.
Right.
So.
And we have no idea how this reservation system is going to work. Hopefully it works better than the Rise of the Resistance reservation system.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely awaiting more information from Disney as well. So I'll be excited to see what the system looks like and how many people they're allowing in, how many reservations they're taking. I don't know. This is like all new, territory.
So although they are not accepting new reservations to the resorts, they said that DVC members can still make reservations at this time. So that seems like almost like a little hack. Whereas if you want to go to Disney when it's first opening and you don't think that you have a ticket or that you can't get a reservation, if you are a DVC member, then you can book a room and then you're in the running for a reservation.
I think they assume that most DVC members are annual pass holders, but that's not always the case.
Right. And then the other question that I have about that is, if you book a room, are you guaranteed entry into a park?
Now, when I was reading through this, did they actually say that resorts are opening on a specific day?
Yes.
Oh, they did. When are the resorts opening?
Actually, much sooner. They're opening on June 22nd.
Ah, okay.
Which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So they weren't specific about which resorts are going to be opening, though. They did say that DVC resorts, which I kind of thought most resorts at Walt Disney World were also DVC resorts. I know that there are a few that are not, but like Pop Century is not.
Right.
But the majority of the resorts have some DVC aspects to it. I know that there are specific resorts like Saratoga Springs and the Riviera are considered DVC resorts. That's their role.
Yeah, they are solely a DVC resort.
Yeah, they're labeled DVC resorts.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's those. And then the other one that's opening is Fort Wilderness.
The campgrounds.
The campgrounds.
Okay.
They did say that masks are going to be required in all common areas of the resorts. So that means like as soon as you get out of your room, you have to put a mask on.
Right.
But in your room, you don't have to wear a mask. So speaking of DVC resorts, they did also mention that Hilton Head up in South Carolina and Vero Beach down in Vero Beach, Florida, are going to be opening up on June 15th. So a little bit earlier than everybody else.
And we just are kind of assuming that the same rules will apply at Hilton Head and Vero Beach, that you will need to wear a mask in any common areas of the hotel.
But they did not mention anything about temperature checks at the hotels. So that's an interesting little tidbit there.
Okay. And I wonder if that kind of information will come out later.
Maybe.
Again, we're still waiting on information, to more things to be clarified. So maybe that's one of the things.
So the rest of the things that they proposed are pretty typical for everything else that's been going on. Face covering is required for both guests and cast members. Temperature screening for both guests and cast members. Another little note about the masks is that they are required for anybody that's over the age of 3. So anybody that's under the age of 3 is not required to wear a mask.
They'll also be implementing physical distancing practices around the park and in the queues, and they did give an example of different signage and different markers you might see around the park. They will also be increasing the sanitation practices all around the park as well.
So they didn't give examples like SeaWorld did where they have spaces in between each rider or in between each row on the rides, but based on what's happening at Shanghai, I think that's probably what will happen. So like Omni Movers and stuff like that won't have any spaces between, but like say if you're on Pirates, they'll skip a row and give a space between you and the party ahead of you.
But again, they didn't actually mention that, so that's just purely us speculating. So that part we're not sure about, but it just makes sense based on what Shanghai has implemented.
Another thing that I thought was interesting in the wording was that they said that face covering is required anywhere on property.
Wow.
So that means like as soon as you get out of your car in Ticket and Transportation parking lot,
Wow.
Put on a mask, ride the tram over to Ticket and Transportation, get on a ferry. And they said they're going to have physical distancing markings on the ferries and all of the modes of transportation. They didn't mention anything about buses, but they did say specifically ferries going to have markings in it. That was just the example that they gave. I'm sure that they are going to be also loading in with a reduced capacity the monorail to get people in.
But we don't know for sure about the monorail.
Right.
Okay. I was kind of curious how they were going to handle, because it's a small capsule that you're in with sometimes a large group of people. Yeah. So I was kind of curious about that. And again, we're just awaiting more information from really all the parks.
Right.
So I'm definitely curious to see what like the next phase of information that comes out is. So this piece of information was the thing that sort of interested me the most and was almost kind of the most shocking to me, but it makes sense, is that they did say because they will be practicing physical distancing that they would be pausing anything that would draw a large crowd. So they would be pausing any nighttime spectaculars, any parades, also anything that would be a high-touch situation, which would include things like makeover opportunities. And they didn't name Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, but that's what comes to mind when they say makeover opportunity is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and the Pirates League. So those situations, they're going to be paused until further
notice.
Yeah, they didn't really explain any more on that. And then they also, when they talk about high touch situations, something that we were talking about is what's going to happen at the interactive queues.
Right. So like Winnie the Pooh or Seven Doors Mine Train, they have all these things in there that you can play with. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll just be turned off.
Haunted Mansion is another one too.
Yeah.
I wonder if, I mean, they can turn it off, but I wonder if they're just going to have it like tarped over, or maybe there's going to be a box around it.
Maybe.
Because I don't know that you can explain to a kid, hey, don't touch this, it doesn't work right now. I think you'd have to actually like cover it completely.
Right.
So That's interesting. I kind of wonder what that's going to look like when the park opens.
Yeah.
Are there any other high-touch areas? Oh, they did say playgrounds would be closed as well. Right. So there is a playground in the Splash Mountain area that's kind of like, as you're walking into the queue, there's a little sort of a tunnel almost that you go through.
Yeah, you go underneath the train tracks.
That's what it is. Yeah, and there's a small playground area in there. Are there any other places like that at Magic Kingdom?
Not that I can think of at Magic Kingdom.
Okay, but places like that will be paused. They'll be closed until
further
sometime
notice
in the future, yeah.
Yeah. Another question that I had that I'm wondering what the answer to it is that what is the definition of a large crowd? Does that mean that we're not going to have the Dans anymore, the Dapper Dans? Are we not going to have the Jaminators? Are we not going to have the Citizens of Hollywood?
See, now I wonder if they would be almost considered a meet and greet. I know they're technically not a meet and greet, but in the way that maybe they would gather at the top of the train station. Maybe they would gather at like a window on Main Street where you could see them through the window. But then would that cause a gathering in the street?
Would that still cause a crowd?
Yeah.
So they did say that they were pausing character meet and greets, but they also said they were not getting rid of the characters in the parks. Like there would still be character opportunities around. So that to me is like what they did in Shanghai where they had the characters up on top of the train station. But that also seems like it would draw a crowd.
So now another thing that they mentioned was that they would have a physical distancing squad, which sounds like kind of a way to put a fun spin on cast members that are just going to keep you moving. Yeah. So they're just going to say like, no stopping here. You've got to keep going. No stopping here. It's kind of like when they used to do the parades and you wouldn't be able to stop past the taped line. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there were walkways where they would have a taped line and you could stand on one side of the taped line and watch the parade. But if you were on the other side of that taped line, you had to keep walking. There was no stopping and standing there. So there would be a team member or a cast member that would say, can't stand here. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep moving. Keep going further. There might be space down the street, that type of thing.
Right.
So I wonder if they're just going to have those physical distancing squad cast members saying, you can enjoy the Dans as they serenade you from the train station, but you've got to keep walking.
Right. And we got a little taste, a little preview of what the social distance squad looks like at Disney Springs when we went for the preview of that. There were just like a couple of cast members that were out there kind of like informing you of the rules and making sure that you're complying, but also keeping it fun and light. So another thing that they mentioned is that they're moving more towards a contactless payment environment. So increased mobile ordering, Apple Pay, Google Pay. They also kind of mentioned expanded a Magic Band.
Which, that's something that I don't know why they hadn't done previously. It just makes sense that everybody should be able to link a credit card to their Magic Band and pay with their Magic Band.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already wearing it.
Right.
It just makes sense that would be the next step.
And I don't know if it was something to do with the infrastructure, because the only way that you were able to charge anything on your Magic Band was if you were staying in a resort hotel. Mm-hmm. So what you were basically doing is charging it to your room, and then that would accumulate, and then they would just charge your credit card one big fee from the resort.
Gotcha.
But now I think, based on what they're saying, this is just my thoughts. This wasn't confirmed in any way, shape, or form, that they're going to allow everybody to charge on their Magic Band?
Well, what was the wording that Disney actually used about the Magic Band?
It was kind of like said in passing. It's not in any of the official transcript or any of the official releases. It was just something that one of the Disney reps said on the call. He said, when we're looking at the contactless payment environment, we're looking at expanding the Magic Band functionality.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's exciting.
That is exciting. Hey guys, Future Tim here. Just wanted to quick pop in and say there was one thing that I forgot to mention that was kind of mentioned in passing during the presentation, and that is that Disney is looking into what they're calling Relaxation Zones, an area where you can take your mask off for a little bit and maybe get some air. I don't know. It seems interesting, and I'm not really sure what it means or how they're going to pull that off, because once you get people in a confined area without their masks on, that seems dangerous. I don't know. I'm looking for more information about that, and I'm sure Disney will be putting out more information in the days and weeks coming. So another one of the questions that I have in this entire thing is, before everything shut down, one of the hardest things to do was to get a reservation for Rise of the Resistance at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now they're talking about having to have a reservation to get into the park with reduced capacity. Does that mean that the reservation system goes away for Rise of the Resistance?
That's a good question.
I'm like really interested to see how a lot of these things are going to play out.
I wonder how that's going to work, because you know that if they get rid of the reservation system and it's just purely you stand in line to ride the ride, that's going to be the longest line in the park. Right. There aren't very many rides in the park to begin with. That's at Disney's Hollywood Studios. So they're going to implement the physical distancing in the queue.
Which is very possible. It's a very long queue.
Well, I guess it is kind of a long queue, but I feel like with the physical distancing, it's going to shorten the queue kind of like immensely. So then I wonder if they're going to stop the queue and say nobody else can stand in line. Would they say come back in an hour, or would they say reserve a time?
I think they would say come back in an hour.
It kind of makes me, I'm kind of thinking that they're going to keep the reservation system for the ride.
I'm kind of thinking that maybe Rise of the Resistance might not open with this first phase.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because it's such a complex ride.
Oh, how do you physically distance in the ride?
Right.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because there's one section of the ride where you're just standing.
In a line.
And in a cell, in a line, in a transport vehicle.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
Seems interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that one might not be open for the first phase.
I think it's too complex. And we should also mention, we keep saying phase. They did specifically say that this is phase 1. So that means that they are going to be continually expanding this as time progresses.
But we should also say that these changes are temporary. These are not permanent changes.
Right.
We don't know how temporary they are, but they're not something that they didn't call them permanent changes.
Right.
So that is something just to keep in mind as well.
So a lot of this information was released in the Disney Parks blog, and the Disney Parks blog has a section underneath it where people can just ask questions or leave comments. And a lot of the questions were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And we kind of want to propose them to you, too, to see what your thoughts are on them. So one of them was like, how does Savi's workshop work? And I think that one, would be pretty easy to social distance, especially if they're reducing capacity of the parks greatly.
Well, so just in case you don't know what that is is it a store? What is it?
It's a store show experience.
Yeah, inside of Galaxy's Edge where you build a lightsaber.
Right.
And we have a video where Tim actually built a lightsaber in this experience, and it is a very small room.
Yeah.
But I
think that they could spread people out in there.
Yeah.
So that they're 6 feet apart at least.
Okay. And then, but you also so you have a cast member that's walking you through the entire experience, and they're kind of like right next to you.
Right.
So how does that work? Because they wouldn't be able to be physically distant.
I don't know, because I feel like this would be considered a show, and they didn't specifically mention anything about shows like Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor or Mickey's PhilharMagic, any of those things. They didn't mention how they're going to be doing the seating in any of those.
If I had to guess, I would think they would just block off seating.
Right.
I think they would just put you can't sit here. Like there's no sitting in this seat. And then maybe the next row of seats you would sit there instead.
Okay.
But I'm just guessing in that situation. I don't know. So one of the biggest questions that they asked in the Parks blog comments was, how does this affect park hopping?
Right.
And that is a really good question.
So if you get a reservation, are you getting a reservation for Magic Kingdom only?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Are they going to be offering some sort of rebate or a refund for people that bought? So we have annual passes. Mm-hmm. So those are considered park hopping passes. But I don't know that they would offer us a refund because we could just come back the next day and go to a different park. But say somebody that had already purchased their tickets, bought park hoppers, and only had so many days, and they're like, my plan was I was going to come down there for 2 days and go to Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom one day, and the next day Epcot and Hollywood Studios.
Right.
And now they can't do that. So are they going to offer a little bit back on that ticket to turn it into one-day tickets or one-park tickets?
And these are questions that we don't have the answers to, and I don't think that they're going to release the answers to these questions. I think they have bigger fish to fry right now.
Right.
But what are your thoughts? Leave some comments down below, and what do you think they would do or should do?
Also, another thing that they did not mention was the water parks. And it was really interesting looking at the My Disney Experience app today because they changed all of the times today to reflect the new proposed opening dates, except for the water parks. The water parks, so a while back, they kept bumping the times on the app forward, and it made it to June 14th. And everything was giving you times for June 14th. And people were like, oh, is the park going to... They were like asking, do you think that this means that the park's going to open this day? And then today they released their proposed opening dates of July 11th and 15th. Mm-hmm. And they changed those dates for Magic Kingdom, EPCOT, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. They did not change the water parks. So the water parks still have the park hours for June 14th.
On the My Disney Experience app?
On the My Disney Experience app.
I think that they're not going to open, and that's why they didn't change the dates for the water parks.
Right.
Because they're just going to be closed.
And they did also mention in kind of passing that they're going to be turning off water effects around the park. So like fog, say like over at the Leaky Tiki's by Jungle Cruise, or like the Spitting Camel by the Magic Carpets of Aladdin.
Or on Pirates of the Caribbean, the water, the fog kind of curtain where, who's that
Blackbeard.
guy? Blackbeard, yeah. You kind of like go through the fog. They're going to turn those types of things off. So if they're taking that precaution, it makes me think that they're not going to open the water parks.
Right.
And then somebody also asked, do you think they're going to be opening the mini golf courses?
Right, and I think they would open the mini golf courses.
Yeah.
We don't have any information on that at this time, but I think they would. I think that those will probably open to like very little fanfare. It'll just kind of like happen one day.
Yeah, okay.
They'll be like, oh, we opened the mini golf courses. But I should also mention that Disney Springs has been open for a little bit now, and they just opened up the Disney-owned stores. So like World of Disney and the Co-op, those opened today.
Yeah, and it was a big crowd.
It was a madhouse.
Yeah, the line just to have your phone number taken so they could text you and say, hey, you can go in and shop now. That line was an hour long. And then you had to wait, like virtually wait for the text for another 3 hours. So essentially you had to wait 4 hours to shop at the World of Disney.
Right.
So what do you think, what kind of crowd do you think is going to show up for the first opening day?
And the thing that kind of gives me a little bit of like relief of that is that they're doing this reservation system. So they're going to have a strict capacity of the parks rather than just like Disney Springs. They're like, yeah, sure, everybody can come.
So did they mention the percentage of the capacity that they are allowing into the parks? Like, what's the percentage of people that can get the reservation to get into the park? Did they say like 50%, 75%, anything?
No. They just said park capacity will be significantly limited.
Okay.
And so significantly sounds like a lot to me, but...
So what do you think? Maybe like 50%?
Maybe.
Okay. What do you guys think?
So when Shanghai opened, I think that somewhere out there I heard somebody say like 25%.
Is what they allowed in the park?
Right.
Wow.
With the reservation system.
Okay.
So the way that it seems is that they're kind of following the Shanghai model for all of this. Mm-hmm. Like with the way that everything is playing out and the way that they announced these different procedures, that's very, very similar to what Shanghai did. And if that's what Shanghai did, 25%?
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we'll be at.
Very interesting. We got a lot of information today. A lot of information about SeaWorld, a lot of information about the Disney parks, and it was exciting information.
Yeah, it was exciting information, but we still have a lot of questions.
Yeah, and we're still, again, waiting for more clarification and more information about the openings. So I'm just excited to see what you guys think about everything. We can't wait to read your comments down in the comments area down below. Are you guys going to be going? What are your thoughts on everything?
Can you go?
Yeah, did you already have tickets? Will you be trying to get a reservation spot? Will you be staying at one of the resorts?
Do you think that after all of this has been announced and you know the procedures now, did you automatically say, all right, we're going to change our reservation to 2021, 2022? Yeah,
will you be waiting? Are you going to wait until they end the mask rule? I'm really curious what you guys think.
Because we do know that things are going to get back to normal eventually. Like Disney will be back to the way that it was. These rules are just temporary, but we don't know when that'll be.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to find out when you guys think it'll be and what your plans are.
Yeah. So today was a really exciting day in the theme park world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we are off. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
And now it's time to pay the price.